Raghu Krishnamoorthy has been with General Electric for over 2 decades now. An IIM graduate and a Fulbright scholar at the University of Minnesota, Raghu has more than 19 years of human resources experience at GE. That includes several global and operational leadership roles across GE Money and GE Aviation. But Raghu found his final calling in 2013 with Croutonville. Founded in 1956, Croutonville is the world's first major corporate university. The 59-acre main campus in New York hosts thousands of GE employees and customers each year, taking them through path-breaking executive training programs. Raghu spent a lot of his time across geographies, meeting and mentoring young minds, and was happy to be a part of this Young Turks tutorial. I'm at the General Electric headquarters in Gurgaon, and I have with me a bunch of management and business students from India's reputed colleges. And they are all excited about the Young Turks tutorial with Raghu Krishnamoorthy of GE. So without further ado, let's go inside and start this tutorial. Raghu believes it's never too early to start up and never too early to build oneself up as a leader. So we decided to put these students in a masterclass with the man himself. Here's what they are looking for.
Hi, I'm Anuja, currently studying in IIM Ahmedabad. From this Young Turks tutorial, I'm looking forward to know about successful leadership traits.
Hi, I'm Shaunak. I'm currently studying MBA in IIM Ahmedabad. From this session, I would like to know more about leadership development across any organization.
Hi, I'm Ankit from FMS Delhi and co-founder of AptoGift.com. I look forward to learn HR and leadership skills in a startup context today.
Hi, I'm Ronak from IT Delhi. I've co-founded Routofy.com. In today's Young Turks tutorial, I'm looking forward to know more about talent management in an early stage startup.
Now Raghu, let me start by asking you about Croutonville. You know, for more than 50 years now, this legendary campus in New York has been at the forefront in terms of thinking, in terms of leadership, innovation, corporate strategy, and you've been influential in all of this. So tell us more about it.
The emphasis that the operating leaders and business leaders place on learning is huge. To give an example, virtually every leadership program, the chairman personally comes to speak to all the students, as do many of the business leaders. Secondly, we believe leaders teach others, leaders teach leaders, and that makes them good learners. So we have something called the leadership in residence, and what we do is we bring our business leaders and have them spend a week at a time immersed in Croutonville. They learn, they teach, they connect, they coach, and that really reduces the distance between a very senior leader and somebody who's just entering the company, and makes them very accessible and approachable.
So we understand how GE grooms their leaders, and I believe many as well say that leaders are born and not made. So do we look for a particular leadership trait while getting someone on board, and how does GE take those traits forward?
You have to have good raw material, right? So obviously when we do recruit people, we have high standards of who comes into the organization. But once you come into the organization, we do everything to make you successful in terms of your performance and in terms of your capabilities. So what we do is ensuring that we have very high standards for screening people who come in, and they need to demonstrate and have good analytical capabilities, good problem-solving capabilities, make sure that they are team players and inclusive, and so on and so forth. The bare minimum, but really important. Once they come in, we teach them. We teach them to what does it mean to have customer focus? How do you really choose between various options you have, and how do you think through clearly and present your arguments? How do you take a leap of faith, and how do you demonstrate courage? How do you work across the matrix? And finally, how do you really shape your expertise to be successful?
Raghu, you talked about the global programs that you do. So how do you find Indian CEOs as compared to global CEOs? What do you think they lack, and what do they need to do to really up their game?
You know, we are in an era where you see a lot of Indians taking over big corporations, right? And in GE itself, and we have several folks who have originally come from India, who are in big leadership positions. The analytical skills, That's what Indians are known for.
Yes.
Certainly their ability to grasp and solve a problem, the hunger to learn.
What about the ability to take risk? Do you find that?
I do find that as well, and I think that comes from the context where, and they are very humble too. Where I do find some of the folks struggling is how do you articulate to an audience that you're not familiar with? How do you manage the stakeholders, governments, investors, in a context that you're not familiar with? And that comes from practice, not necessarily comes from skills that you already have. So once they get the practice, they're very, very good.
Did you face any sort of setbacks in your career? Give us some anecdotes, and how do you move past on failure? How do you move past setback and you say, oh, we still have a goal in sight?
I would call them learnings, because if you don't convert failure into an opportunity to learn, you basically have really missed out a unique learning intervention.
Sure.
So one of the critical learnings I've had is several years ago, we had a situation in Thailand where I was laying off a lot of people. Sometimes you have to inevitably make those tough calls, but how do you be sensitive to the cultural context? For me, and my boss at that time gave me very strong feedback that in a place like GE, it's not just good enough for you to be a good business partner. It's important for you to be a good employee advocate as well. And I learned that the hard way. But the important thing is for me to dust that scar and that hurt that I've experienced, to move on and learn from that mistake.
If you had to start up today, what are the factors that you would take into account? And now, I'm not talking about any particular sector. In general, if you had to start up today, what are the various factors that one should take care of?
You know, one of the things that we are looking at is those who get onto startups and start ventures have the risk-taking ability. We like that. You have a single-minded focus to make it successful. You place a bet on yourself to get there, because the prospect of failure is not an option. You give it all that you have to make it successful. Those are great qualities that we want to have in every leader, whether it's a small organization or a startup. So you have taken the bet. You have taken the initiative. And in an organization like GE, we want to nourish that. We want to make sure that you get the other skills that make you even more successful. Because only by your being successful will a company like GE be successful.
Raghu, I have a question regarding early stage startups. So I mean, when you're in early stage startups, it's really important for you to have good talent. I mean, good people. So how do you attract good talent in an early stage startup? Because I mean, it's a high risk game, and keep your team motivated, because you have times when things are not going well and you're in a low phase. But to keep your team going is the real challenge.
I think you have to really drive the purpose of what you're doing and create a sense of mission and align people to the mission, something that emotionally resonates with the people.
Right.
And when they believe in the cause of what you're doing, that really accounts for the passion that comes with it, despite the upheavals that you may have. And you are definitely bound to have those upheavals.
Right.
The question is, if you have that sense of mission, you're going for the moon shot, right? When you are trying to fly to the moon, you're inevitably going to have situations where you are going to get confronted with, which is not optimal. How do you keep the focus on getting to the moon and not get distracted by what happens meanwhile? I think for entrepreneurs, that commitment and that passion, you have to exemplify in everything you do.
Raghu, I have a follow-up question on that. So nowadays, whenever you're starting up, you want to remain lean. And even when you've got a great team, there are sometimes instances when you've got to fire people as well. And the entire culture that has set in recently, where the Facebook folks saying you hire slowly, fire fast, and Steve Jobs said that A-star players only like working with A-star players. So how do you recommend suggesting us, striking a balance between being human at the same time, but also being very stern while taking such decisions? So that is a constant dilemma that I face, more or less. Sometimes we hire folks for 2 months and then we've got to ask them to leave, not necessarily because of their own fault, but because of the business is going lean. So in a startup scenario, how do you manage that?
It's a tough dilemma.
Right.
You have to start with the premise that you're hiring people not as tools or instruments,
Right.
but as resources and investments. And when you have that faith in whom you bring to the table, there are times when you may not be in a position to fulfill that, right? How caring and transparent you are in the process, how you treat them on their way out, is going to be the legacy and the brand that you leave behind when they move on. The fact that they may need to move on is something that may be beyond your control, and it would happen. But how you treat them, how you work with them, how you show compassion and true attention to what they need to go through is very critical.
One of the other challenges that enterprises face today is of the ability to adapt quickly.
You've got to break up your world into small goals. We call it fast works.